You're tuning into the Journey to Your Best Self podcast, where we explore the path to holistic well-being, personal growth, and living a fulfilling life. Each episode, we bring you insightful conversations, practical tools, and inspiring stories to help you integrate your mind, body, and spirit on your journey to becoming your best self. Let's dive in and embark on this journey together. Welcome back to the Journey to Your Best Self podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian O'Neill, and I'm joined by our amazing co-host, Tara O'Neill, clinical hypnotherapist, life coach, and yoga instructor. Together, we're here to help you navigate the journey to a more balanced and fulfilling life. Today, we are very excited from around the world to have Dr. G. Rex Kruhly, the founder of Depth Healing Technology, with us. Dr. G, if I may, has over 50 years of experience in health, quantum physics, and personal development. And he's dedicated his life to helping individuals reprogram their minds, remove limiting beliefs, and achieve profound personal transformation. His unique approach blends ancient wisdom with cutting-edge quantum physics, offering a pathway to success, health, and emotional freedom. Dr. G, it's an honor for both of us to have you on the show. We're really looking forward to diving in and learning a lot from you and just figuring out, all you have to offer. There's so many different places we like to go with this interview, have you for a limited amount of time. But again, thank you for coming on.
I'm honored to be here, and don't worry about time. If you want to go past, I'm free. So no problem at all.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank
I guess where to start, we can maybe work our way backwards. Would you like to provide a bit of an overview as far as Depth Healing, your site, and the unique technology that you've innovated?
An overview. Let's see if I can come up with an overview. So,
Well, first, actually, can you tell us exactly where in Thailand you are?
yeah. I had a big car crash on May 3rd in Chiang Mai.
Sorry.
I live in Chiang Mai,
Okay.
and I was fortunate enough to be led to just an absolute genius chiropractor here in Pattaya. So I'm in Pattaya since March, and this guy is re-engineering my whole spine, which is astounding because I had a major crash related to karmic issues, and no one else was involved. But I passed out at the wheel, crashed off of a freeway down a hill through 5 trees, apparently, according to the police, and crashed into a canal. I was completely unconscious for over 3 hours before they found the car at night, and took 2 cranes to lift it out of there. So I had no broken bones, not even a cut, nothing.
Wow.
Jeez.
All I have is inflamed nerves. So, but I've lived for many years because I'm 46 years of professional martial art background. I don't know if you ever read my bio, but I've had many
Yeah, it's
massive
extensive.
Yeah, we had to read it a couple times. Yeah.
So this nice man here is fixing my spine. So I'm in Pattaya. Now, regarding his question of an overview, because of my life as a martial artist, I always met, because I required, the finest doctors in the world. So that's part of my karma. Like 16 years with George Goodhart Jr., the founder of applied kinesiology, and men like that. And during that time, while I was honing myself as a martial artist, I was learning what it is to self-heal as well as what it is to suffer. And I've worked every kind of job. When I was a young buck, I used to work labor. I know everything. I've experienced just about every side of the tracks except politics. I think of politics as like a clown show. So anyway, I'm learning, and always at the feet of great masters. I have no regard for my academic background at all, strictly just for titles. That's all. I always learn directly, heart to heart, from great teachers, and I recommend that to all of you. Always learn from a person heart to heart, never from AI. So what happened is with the way my life unfolded and all the various experiences, they all started to gel. I learned many different healing modalities, all kinds of things. And then when I moved to Georgia, after I graduated as a licensed doctor from Texas, I met Dr. Habursky. Habursky is a master jewel of the quantum field, and he's mastered like maybe 40 different systems on a master's level, including applied kinesiology. And so anyway, I met him, and he was the one who taught me about cognitive dissonance. And I had 27 years of imprinted lack consciousness, 27 years. And it was ironed in there in the fabric of me. And that's why I never ever had success financially. I got all kinds of do all kinds of things, took every seminar. I started with Tony Robbins at the age of 18. Couldn't make a dime.
Wow.
So I'm going through now. I'm in my 40s as a doc, and I meet Dr. Habursky, and for the next 8 years, about once a week to sometimes 2-3 times a week, he's removing the cognitive dissonance. I lived in a state of rage for 30 years. He's working on all of that and disassembling all of that out of my consciousness. And also during that time in Atlanta, I was introduced to Shyama Bhagavan, the great avatars in India. Prior to that, I'm connected to Padmasambhava of Tibet. So at one point, I get this phone call around 2013, maybe. I get a phone call. I'm in Georgia, and the only reason I'm living in a nice house is because my wife, Tammy, was a physical therapist, and she had an income. I could never make anything. Well, anyway, I get this phone call while I'm in my altar room, my altar prayer room. And it's a couple from New York. She has metastasized cancer, stage 4, and he had multiple sclerosis. I forgot. What is he called? MS. Yeah,
MS, multiple
for 2 years.
sclerosis.
So they call me up, and I answer the phone. And I said, well, and I have no advertising. I had nothing. And I said, well, folks, what am I supposed to do? You're in New York, and I'm in Georgia. I can't help you. And immediately the voice told me, he said, no, you can heal them from here. No problem. So I did. What I did was I just trusted that, because I knew how to do energy transfer from Diksha and from Reiki, because I had mastered Tibetan Reiki. And the MS, I was able to stop cold, no problem. But her oncologist convinced her that I was a quack. So she left the sessions after about 1 month, and she died within 1 month. But that's how I initiated. That was the initiation of me as a distance healer. And then all the time, the divine was evolving me, until now. Depth healing has no relation whatsoever to Dr. Habursky's original work, except that the frequencies that he uses, he is kind enough to give them to me, because those are channeled frequencies. Now, I learned through the divine and Dr. Habursky the nature of the mind, the quantum field, and took me about 10 years, I mastered self-kinesiology until I'm surgically precise. Because you have to be able to eliminate, everything depends on the question, everything. And everything also depends on my clarity. There must not be any entanglements, or the reading you get will be wrong. So eventually, I used to have to clear entanglement. Now I don't have to clear entanglements at all. So it's been a process, and then eventually I have clients all over the world, and I've helped thousands of people. And basically, what I do with depth healing, folks, is I'm a life engineer. So depth healing's designed to handle everything and anything in programs 3, 4, and 5. What's that? Program 3 begins at the moment of conception in the womb, which is a big boy, because programs 1 and 2 are drawn into you at that time. And then through your birth process, and the first 6 hours after you're born are enormously important. The 4th program begins after those 6 hours are up until you turn 7. And then at the age of 7, when the frontal cortex kicks in, your thinking brain kicks in at that time. Program 5 begins, which is from age 7 to whatever age you are now. That's where my real, I can affect everything and anything there. Once it goes past that, you have to have divine intervention. I can also affect, to a certain extent, programs 1, which is past lives, and program 2, the genetic inheritance. Genetic inheritance, I don't want you to think like the science of genetics. That's like an insect. Genetic inheritance means everything that happened on your dad's side 6 generations back, and anything that happened on your mother's side 6 generations back. And that's a big boy now, because Kali Yuga is winding down. Kali Yuga will stop when the human population is sufficiently reduced. So that's the nicest way I can say that. As Kali Yuga is doing that, there's a quickening of karma, karmic debts. Like in my case, I'm the last Kruhly. When I die, Kruhlys are gone, period. So there's some karmic debt coming to me, and it requires real divine work from the divine to clear that stuff. Because apparently on my father's side, there was a serial killer, and he killed a hell of a lot of people. So as far as we can tell, something like 21 people he murdered. Wow. I'm the last Kruhly, so the karma is coming to me, and it's heavy. I have several clients where their karmic field is just about crushing them, and no matter what I do, we have to pray and connect. I have empowerments with prayer, so the prayer has more oomph to it, but still they're suffering, and that's above and beyond anything in the regular. No other intervention is going to do anything. So that's basically what I do. I was born only to help the world. My main power is morphic field physics, so I can affect the consciousness of up to 21,000 people at one time. Relative to a single.
That's quite a group session right there.
Yeah.
But that's relative to one specific question, eh? So you have a collective. I want you to think of all the collective means is it's a morphic field, and the whole universe and everything runs on morphic fields. Period. End of story. Now, morphic field, folks, is real easy to imagine. You know how you got a laptop. You're watching me on the laptop, and you can download and upload stuff to the cloud. The cloud is a morphic field, an electromagnetic field, and the information you send from your computer up there is encoded in photons of light. You know, you can think of them like little soap bubbles, and they're all clustered together there, and it's a feed forward, feed backward system. It's a torus, so you can feed up and you can download down. So what I do when I'm working with a group is I don't work with the individual computers. I work with the cloud. We have all the people in the group type in the same question at the same time to the cloud. And each computer has completely different software, which represents the individual differences in subconscious minds. Okay? So the individual question is posed. I have them ask it, and that lights up the answer in the cloud. Then I see it in the cloud, I disassemble it, and I erase it. When I do that, it's gone from the database in all those computers relative to that question. So their brain reorganizes, perception changes, perception gives you your vibration frequency, and then by the law of resonance, everything changes relative to that frequency and perception change. Does that make sense?
It does. After you described it, it must be quite a powerful feeling on your end being able to do that. I mean,
no, what it is it gives me a lot of joy, and it also fascinates the daylights out of me, because when I first tried to do this stuff, I used to think to myself, is this real?
Yeah.
How that? But what happened was everybody I worked on, I got like 97, 98, even sometimes 100% response, right? So
Yeah.
step by step, it dawned on me, it really works. And now I have no doubt. I don't care if you put me on the stage with the biggest boys the world has, no problem at all.
Yeah. And maybe you could speak to the fact that our listeners, even ourselves, while I have done a little bit of energy work, Reiki master myself, fascinated, I'm on this journey as well, to tell our listeners that it's okay that they don't understand with their cognitive mind, that just by the resonance of being near you, listening to you, and the similar field of vibration, the quantum field, that is a start for someone who is on this journey or seeking some sort of higher power, and not knowing cognitively that they don't have to try so hard with their mind. So can you speak to that? Like what do the average person that has an interest in this, but they think they have to understand all the technical parts of it?
That is a beautiful question, Tara. And that's the first time in my career anybody ever thought of that or asked that question, which speaks to your level of understanding.
Oh,
So,
thanks.
folks, what she's talking about is profound. That's why I told you at the beginning of this podcast to learn from a master and never use AI, never learn from AI. Why? Okay, so right now, my field is interacting with Tara and Brian and all of you. So we're all interacting now and interpenetrating each other. Now it all sounds really wild. As she says, we don't necessarily understand it because none of us, nowhere in the world do they put that in your academic education. Nobody teaches you these things. But all the ancients and all the dharmic practices have always known this. And there's a scientist named William Tiller of Stanford University who's a great genius and became a leader in quantum physics and spirituality and merging the two. You just look up William Tiller, you'll find scads of information and great books. And he speaks to this. There is a transfer of information that's going on between us. See, your subconscious, you're processing 40 million bits of information per second. The cognitive brain that we think with only processes 40, and it's only active 1 to 5% of your whole day. So rather than worrying about, because I was like that for years, a decade, I want to know why, and then how. As you mature in the Dharma, the pathway, or you start to do this kind of work and healing, the why and the how just sort of drop away. They just sort of disassemble and drop away because you'll start to use more of higher consciousness. and you'll understand. Like if I always train and do things in forests or in parks where there's a lot of trees. Why? The Druids knew this. The men of the oak. There is a massive, massive fields around all of the trees, including the grass and every plant there. And that information is being absorbed by your consciousness. When you sit with me or you talk with me, you don't have to understand how. I don't understand lots and lots and lots of stuff, but it just happens. And the thing to observe is your feeling, not the thinking, more your feeling. What do you feel in your heart, and what do you feel down in your gut? Those are the big brains. This is a little brain. This guy here is only an antenna system, and thoughts and information which come from the field is millions, very, very ancient. They come in right here and they leave at the back of your head on the same line, like a straight line. And the antenna system has an arrangement so that it's tuned to certain stations. So right now, you guys in this audience, you are tuned very differently from someone who wants to listen to, I'm trying to think of some idiot, but one of the, like on CNN News. And those people who listen to that stuff and believe it, their brain is tuned to a certain frequency, and it's very different than yours, or you would never be here. So that's why we're already connected. There's a resonance. Everyone that's attracted to Brian and Tara, that's part of the karmic family. Their karmic family, which means I'm part of their karmic family, and they're part of my karmic family. Karmic families consist of 100,000 people. And how do we know that? Anyone that achieves actual enlightenment, like Eckhart Tolle, if you look at Eckhart Tolle's statistics, you'll find when he does a big seminar or something, that there will almost always be at least 100,000 that attend, online or in person. 100,000.
Yeah. So
and that's
can you?
because field
Sure.
is field.
Yeah,
You
for
know,
those listening and not watching, Tara
Right.
just held up
So
a
yeah.
Eckhart
So
Tolle
I don't know
book
if it's
to the audience. So the connection, Dr. G's powers, right,
Yeah.
are
Right.
on full
Woo! He's
display
with
right
us.
now.
I mean,
Distance thousands of miles away, and within 30 seconds, she was able to just grab the right book.
right.
That was
Yeah.
definitely not planned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
Eckhart
But
Tolle was awesome.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I love that
And I
guy.
didn't know what he was saying cognitively, and it didn't matter because I had that felt sense of it. But could you maybe speak to how, with the soul family, like we can't wake other people up, even if we want to, because it's not their karma. So, whereas like it can be lonely, through this healing journey, right? Because sometimes as you ascend, people don't come with you. So can you speak to that, maybe the dynamic of that 100,000 people?
Yeah, that's my work. See what happens is, folks, we're born to, as she calls it, ascend, the rising of consciousness up toward eventually literally being an ascended being in the great compassionate light. What generally happens, that generally happens after we die and leave the planet. But what she's talking about is we have walls, and the divine, it blocks us from divine grace. So, for instance, when Jesus was walking around in his sandals, there was a lot of people who loved him, and they followed him, and the Romans killed him. The Romans had walls, and the walls consist of beliefs, and the belief is an energy field. It's a frequency. So, for instance, I'm this month coming up, and I'll be doing a collective. I do 2 collectives per month for people that don't have a lot of money, and it's very affordable. But I'm going to be removing guilt. Now, guilt creates a really thick wall between us and the divine. So what I do what the difference between me and anything else I'm aware of, I go right down into the very foundation of the very first download related to the structure of guilt, and I eliminate it. I eliminate every single download exactly and precisely until they're past the age of 7, when the frontal cortex is activated, related to guilt. So there's nothing that supports the existence of guilt. And then when that's accomplished, I come up to present time, whatever age the clients are now. And if there's any active program still creating guilt, I will eliminate it. So now guilt's gone, period. I say it's gone, relative to whatever area of life we're going after. When I do the collectives, it's general guilt. When I do privates, it's your exact, because sometimes some of your personal issues are really deeply embedded in other things. So what she's talking about is, let's say Tara reaches enlightenment. Because she reaches enlightenment, which is a special state, she will affect her 100,000 just by her existence. It doesn't mean that their guilt, their shame, and various other walls will be removed. But a great many of the 100,000, their consciousness, let's say enlightenment's a 10, 1 to 10, and they're at a 3, she'll lift them to a 4 or 5. But my job is, I go in and remove the walls. And then I connect you directly, because everything I do is channeled through the divine. I have my empowerments for removing negative problems in the walls comes through Tibet. My empowerments to build you up and raise your consciousness or heal your body comes through India. So, and what does an empowerment mean? Empowerment means that I'm conditioned specially through different processes to act as a channel. Doesn't mean I have power, one of the guys I work with, he calls me the Swami. And I said, yeah, I'm gonna give myself a big term. No, I'm not. All I do is I'm like a tube. But the empowerment means that you're made into or conditioned to be a tube. Like Tara is a Reiki master. So Tara's pranayama kosha, her energy body, is specially conditioned. So when she's channeling those major heavy frequencies, it doesn't damage her nervous system or her body or her brain. If she wasn't properly conditioned, the Reiki she tries to channel will damage her. People who like to play around with Kundalini, I don't recommend it unless you have a master that knows exactly. Kundalini can be raised very easily. The question is, where does it go and what does it do? If you ever want to know about Kundalini, just pick up the book Kundalini by Gopi Krishna and read it carefully. And then proceed with Kundalini. Yep. This isn't children's play. This is a real deal.
And I think, just to your point, to healers and not, it really comes down to doing your own self-healing, your inner work, your deconditioning, whatever you want to call it, right? So to be that channel, to be that clear, that clear vessel.
That is so important. They do these weekend seminars, and all of a sudden they're a master or something. That is nothing but a bunch of manure, folks. It takes years of dedicated work under real masters and things to get yourself to the point where people can put their lives or their health in your hand. Because if you just jump into this thing and you don't know what you're really doing, remember you're accumulating karma. If you're a healer and you tell people this, that, and it's a bunch of nonsense, or you don't really know how to control, let's say you're a psychic, but you have no control. You don't really have a way to measure that. You have these feelings and visions. Where did they come from? What if they're coming from an entity and you don't know that? You just know you're channeling, but you don't know what you're channeling or what the level is. And there's karma involved because the other person's life is involved with you. And that's why for healers and doctors and everything, it's a big position and it carries responsibility. So you got to do your own work, however long that takes. If it takes 10 years, it takes 10 years.
Yeah.
And then you do
Absolutely.
quality work and you really serve the community and the world. Otherwise, like I say, the Akashic Records, which is a giant omnipresent being that acts like a supercomputer. There's no judgment involved. But there isn't anything. If a Planckian spherical unit, the smallest thing we know, moves, the Akashic Records recorded them, let alone what we do and what we. So, as a healer, God bless you, and always strive to learn and improve and clarify yourself. And your heart has to be open.
Yeah.
You mustn't be you have to have a state of inner integrity, which means inner integrity means when you're speaking or acting, you're doing something that you are aware of why you're doing it. The truth. You don't have to judge yourself. If it's selfish, it's selfish. That's fine, but you got to be aware of it. Most of us, we are living unaware, unawake, and things are just we're just doing things. We might be hurting so many people we don't know it.
A couple of things there. I guess one thing I wanted to do was do a little bit of a kind of translation for some of the those the uninitiated, right? That you and Tara were relating to, you connecting to the 21,000, and then she had said, well, even if you can't intellectually comprehend something like that on a scale, it's just listening to you and that feeling and then you had mentioned the feeling is important too. And I was just trying to kind of relate to it. And I think a lot of experience that while this isn't on the same level, a lot of us have experienced being at a concert or a sporting event where there is that feeling of loss. You can feel like deflated and empty when things are going poorly, or when someone's on stage making the crowd follow along with them, or when there's a game-winning shot that happens and collectively everyone is kind of linked up, or the lunar eclipse that happened a couple months ago. There was something in the zeitgeist where everyone was out experiencing that together. So I think that it isn't impossible to relate to what you're saying. So some people that are listening, that might initially be like, well, that's just, I can't even comprehend someone reaching that many people at once and having it be synchronized. I think that if they have an open mind, they certainly should be able to relate to what you've said.
That's beautiful, Brian. Always remember something, and then I'll say something to what Brian said. Whether you believe it or not is irrelevant, because I do this stuff every day, 24 hours a day. Now, the lady, when I came on to this podcast, excuse my voice, is Jennifer Marks. Now, Jennifer Marks is a professional psychologist with a list of credentials that'll blow your mind in cognitive psychology, in all branches. I don't know what's wrong with this voice of mine. Pardon. And I removed anger. She had a major anger issue 2 days ago.
Mm.
I did
Wow.
1 hour session. All the anger's completely gone. So what she's going to do is next week is a full-blown professional video testimonial, because what I did was what would normally take months to years
Mm.
of therapy, I can do that in 1 hour. And whether you believe it or not, like I say, is completely irrelevant. People, all of the things that are going on in the galaxy, we can believe it or not, it's still happening, right? So, when it comes to me, that's a lot of my attitude for that. Now, what he's describing when he says a concert or a sporting event, that's very superb. Anytime you have a collective, there is an emergent property. So if I have the consciousness of Mr. A and Mrs. C and Mr. D, and they're all separated somewhere. So each of them has their own level in consciousness. The subconscious mind by the age of 7 has approximately 10 quadrillion bits of information in its database, based on 40 million bits of information per second, 24/7,
Mm.
if you do the math. Now, when I bring them all together, there's an emergent property of consciousness, okay? And that emergent property has reflects all the components of it, and it also influences them all. That's how Hitler makes Nazi Germany, or the
Mm.
pandemic nonsense makes the COVID belief. All it is the morphic field dominates,
Mm.
because it's the highest, it's the consciousness apex of the collective. Another nice example of that is termites. Termites, when you take a bunch of little termites, put them on the table, they look really stupid. Just walk around. In a morphic field of a termite nest comprised of millions, they
Mm.
create termite nests whose architecture is as great and greater in many cases as the finest architecture we can design today. How do those dumb little insects do that? That is the emergent property of the consciousness of all of them together that
Mm.
builds the nest. Now, Bruce Lipton, if you're familiar with the great microbiologist Bruce Lipton, he's the king of quantum biology. I've been following his work for over 30 years. He'll explain it to you this way. The
Mm.
brain of a cell is not the nucleus, so always remember that. If they still teach that where you are, ignore it. So the cell membrane is the brain, and the consciousness and perception ability of that cell depends on the surface area of the cell, the total size. So when by itself, the cell is just a cell. Now we're made out of 50 trillion cells. What happens is, like if we go way back in time and you got a single microorganism and it's just squiggling around in the water, but then it joins up with another one and another one and another one, and the total cell surface of consciousness and perception ability is getting bigger because they
Mm.
all combine. And eventually, it makes like an amoeba, a bigger organism, and then they combine, and before you know it, the consciousness of the combination creates a tissue.
Mm.
When the tissues keep combining, because the consciousness is greater and greater organization, information rising, they
Mhm.
create an organ.
Mhm.
And then that he keeps going, consciousness grow, makes an organ, and eventually you have the human body. Now, human body is an entire civilization of different consciousnesses, all coming together under the head, the king or queen of your physical body. So the heart has its own super consciousness, liver, all of them, because they're specialized cells. So the consciousness of China is different than the consciousness of a bunch of natives that live along the Amazon Delta. Totally different consciousness. And the consciousness of New York is very, very different from Paducah or Windsor, Ontario, where I was born. So those are all micro collectives. So when he's talking about a sport, like a big arena, that collective, including those teams, will create big morphic fields. And that morphic field can determine their behavior. That's why you can see sports, normally well-educated people trampling each other to death because the football went through the goal.
Okay.
And then normally they would never do that.
Right.
When people have a hanging mob, you know, in the old Western movies, those people are normal people. They have their tea and coffee in the morning, and they go out and have grow potatoes. All of a sudden, they're angry and they're going to hang a guy because the collective, that's what's controlling the executive command center. So did that make sense to you?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely, and it's very relatable. A couple other things that yeah, you're got almost one step ahead of me, answering before I even get to ask. You had said before, I think it's important. I was going to ask for a couple of things that listeners can do to apply in their lives, but I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into some of the things that shaped you.
Sure.
You've talked about Christ walking through in ancient Rome, and then you mentioned your influence, how Tibet, so the Buddhism there, and then India with the Hinduism, and you had mentioned always keep learning and trying to learn. So was there a pivotal moment for you during your journey where you just became so curious, because seemingly a lot of those are disparate directions, but were you just always just organically curious and wanting to observe and learn things, or did something happen and you just transformed in a way to being a seeker of truth?
I love both of you guys. You ask the best questions ever. And by the
Okay.
way, folks, so that you all understand and Tara and Brian understand, my empowerment through Tibet, I'm not a Buddhist in any way, shape, or form. And India, I'm not in Hinduism in any way, shape, or form, period, end of story. No religious, nothing. When my empowerments with Tibet are through Padmasambhava, who is a great space being. He was already a space being when he was alive. Space being means that he can be in multiple places or omnipresent at the same time. Okay, so that's a super high level. So
Wow.
Padmasambhava was already there while he was in a body, and so he's in multiple places, and he's physically in multiple places doing talks to masses of people all at the same time. That's who Padmasambhava is. And I'm connected to him.
Okay.
And then
Is
I
that
get a
like
connection. Go ahead, honey.
is that like an ascended master? Like you said,
Yes,
okay.
Padmasambhava Guru Rinpoche. He's an ascended master. That's right. He's in the great compassionate light, big pantheon. So I have my heart connection to him. So when I call on him, he's there. He lives with me right here because I'm a bhakta. I practice my way is bhakti, like we call bhakti yoga. So I have a personal bond, and if you want, I'll teach you how to make your personal. The greatest thing you can have, and the most important thing, is your bond with your divine, with God. If it's Jesus or whomever, you need him right there in the living room with you, and that's entirely possible. There are hundreds of thousands of people all over the world right now, and that's the absolute reality. whatever God you want. I don't care if it's Archangel Michael or Raphael. It'll be right there. So I have that relationship. That's how I do everything. And I have the same kind of relationship through India. But I'm not, there's no religious anything, period. End of story. This is consciousness. Don't worry about religion. If you have religion, great. If you don't have it, doesn't matter at all. Only thing that matters is the conscious relationship, because the divine does not judge you. No divine ever judged. I don't care what any book tells you. There's no such thing, because the divine is only love. It doesn't know negatives. It doesn't have anything to do with that. People who go to hell is because they judge themselves. When you die, you have to go in front of the great compassionate light. You'll have your light review of take about 5 minutes, 7 minutes of our time. And during that time, you will judge yourself, because you're going to experience everything you ever did from the other person's point of view. Personally, I'm very afraid of that, because I grew up a rough man, and I beat the hell out of a few people, and luckily I never killed anybody. But I grew up on the rough side of the tracks and evolved to where I am now. It was, So now, to answer his question, I was literally born. By the age of 3, I already had the visions of how to heal massive collectives, including the animals, all the beautiful insects, and the trees and everything else. Sort of like a Noah's Ark, just only much bigger. And I used to draw murals of that starting about age 3. Dad used to buy me these great big white Bristol boards, and I would draw the ship and all that stuff. But then at the age of 6, when I failed grade 1 and got my primary wound, was at the end of my 4th program. My mother and dad and the family turned completely against me, rejected me for the rest of my life emotionally. And that set me on the path to how to first find a father figure, so that I had a man to relate to. And I used to watch movies, and I noticed that the heroes, the guy that was liked and respected, was a fighter. So I became a fighter. By grade 8, I could knock the hell out of anybody in that school. And I became a professional martial artist, and I was in the top 1% of all Aikido people in the entire Western Hemisphere. I left Aikido in the year 2000, but I have over 50,000 hours on the mats just in Aikido alone.
Wow.
And then I have 26 years of professional sword after that. And I studied 4 years under Michael Robert Pick and his top men for warfare. So anyway, so that's how I became a tough guy. And then during those years, all the injuries came. 3 knee operations. I broke my back in half when I was 27. We used meditation, Jose Silva's method, plus applied kinesiology under George Goodhart, and I sealed my back at L5 in 12 weeks. It took 3 years to rehab until I could be active on the mats again. So I went through all of that process, and during all those years, of course, I'm studying my very professional Zen. I don't want you to associate me, please, with anybody that you see these days in Aikido. I find them disgusting. Aikido has deprofessionalized to the point of lunacy. I'm not like that. I did real Yoshinkai Aikido. Directly under the headmaster, I carry that lineage. I do real sword, and I don't wear funny-looking pajamas and hit watermelons. I'm the real deal. I taught the United States military. So I want you to know that, because it just hurts me when I see what they call Aikido today. Anyway, so I'm learning I'm meeting these great healers because I'm hurt so bad. And during that time, I'm learning about self-healing, and I'm also developing empathy. Like this nerve pain I got now that I've been dealing with for 6 months, we're going into the 7th month. I never dreamed how severe sciatic pain can be. I'm learning a whole new level of humility. Because the problem with being healers, and Tara might be the same, most of us can make our gift for other people, but I can't turn it on myself. I get like little to no response, and that's really frustrating. So I have to do other kinds of spiritual work, because my issue is karma.
Mm.
I have to go through it, and then when it's gone, it's gone.
Well,
Wow.
thank you for doing all this
That's
karmic work, because we know it does help the collective. Can you speak to how we can find, if we don't maybe say Jesus is not for us, or the universe, or Archangel Michael, or Archangel Uriel, how do we find that consciousness, or that higher self, or your archangel, or your oversoul, whatever you want to call it? Because I do think there are lots, and a lot of it's a lot of,
I
but you speak to
love
that.
you guys so much. I hope I hope I can come back sometime. I'd love. So what she's asking is of critical importance, especially nowadays.
okay.
Back in the old days, Jesus can come down and he does his work,
Hmm.
and Krishna will come down, and different great avatar, they come down. But nowadays, with the intercommunication of everybody through the internet, and the diversification of so many things, the divine doesn't do that anymore. So here's how you do that. Do you know what your immune system is made out? It's made out of non-differentiated or undifferentiated antibodies. So what does that mean? Big fancy word. It just means that it's just like a round, think of it like just a round ball. That's all. So here comes the famous COVID. So here comes COVID, and it comes into your system, and the undifferentiated antibody takes a look at it, and it starts to morph itself to conform and figure out that COVID virus. It fundamentally takes 3 days for that undifferentiated antibody to finally go through the stages to match that disease. Now, how does that relate to the divine? I tell you the absolute truth. I want you to know that the divine is this gigantic, like a ball of beautiful light. And it's love, not love like you and I think of love. It's a different kind of love. It's absolute pure being love. Satchitananda, existence, consciousness, and bliss. Now, what is that? It's a community. It's a community of all the great ascended beings who are up. They ascended up in, and they're part of that. And they're all together. When you want to relate to the divine doesn't care if you want to relate to it as a butterfly or a tree or anything you want. The divine will morph for you individually, not like the old days, individually for you. Now, how do you know that's true and not just a bunch of nonsense? Easy, very, very easy. So first, the strongest way to make the divine, because you're going to design the divine. You design. You have, that's all in our hands. So what I did was, because it's the easiest, is a personal relationship with my great grandma, who I love so much. She was actually my great great grandma, and my grandpa. So great grandma handles the divine feminine part of God. And Grandpa handles the divine masculine part of God. Divine feminine handles your worldly life, your health, your wealth, your friends, your family, how you're going to die, all of that. It's with mom, the mother. And the divine father is going to be handling your consciousness and stuff like that. Now, so I have them, I create that and I tell the divine, I want you to talk to me and be my friend, living with me as great grandma and grandpa. And then I tell them what they can do, like how do they treat me. So great grandma loves me so much, and is always sweet to me and kind, and she looks after my body and my health and takes care of me like that. And that I give her that responsibility. And I tell the divine, when I call you, I want you to answer me right away. I don't want to delay. Now, female divine answer much faster than male divines do. Know that. Male divines, I tried it. You can wait months. The mom they're right there. And then you tell them, you're nice to me. You protect me. You handle all my finances so I don't have to be afraid of financial ruin. You give them all their responsibilities. And then all you have to do to activate that relationship is talk. Just like if I saw beautiful Tara there, sitting alone at a bar and I want to meet her, I'm going to go over to her and I'm going to talk to her. I'm not going to go over and stare at her. I'm going to talk to her, right? So you do the same thing with the divine, and they will come. And then you tell them, you just talk, just like as if you were a lunatic. You're going to talk all the time to somebody you're not seeing. And when you do, what you do is after a while, you say, listen, I've been talking to you and I call you and everything. I want you to give me a sign. I want you to show me that you're here. Make it obvious that it's from you. Even Joe Dispenza's background actually is similar to mine. His divine is Ramtha. He was under Ramtha for like 20 years. He doesn't talk about that now, but everything he does is strictly from the divine. So anyway, you just talk to the divine, say, I want you to do something. And they'll do something. They'll move the furniture or whatever it is, you'll know. And when they show you, thank them. When something that looks like synchronicity happens, it's not. It's them. And because they're always with you. The human heart, the divine lives there. And our hearts are closed. They're all walled off. And that's why they're killing off the world. That's why they can run COVID so easy. That's why they separate people with fear and all. So when you start to make your connection, and if you see me or someone like me, your heart starts to open. My heart was closed for over 30 years. You know how closed your heart's got to be to take a human target, smash it to pieces? You can't have an open heart and kill a little something. You can't have an open heart and tramp your feet through a flower bed. You can't have an open heart and wage war. So the trick is to get the heart open, and your divine will do that for you. But you must make your bond. You must make your bond. You should see my life with my bond. I am a wealthy, wealthy, wealthy man now. I used to be so poor in 2014, I had to save pennies, to buy a $2 cigar. And that was when I was a big doctor and I'm a master martial artist, and it doesn't make any difference because I had cognitive dissonance against wealth. So everything I did didn't work. I didn't understand it. And now I can do anything because the divine put me in Thailand. I never
Mm-hmm.
dreamed of being in Thailand in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Never heard of it. My education's from Japan. I'm married to a beautiful Thai woman, the dream of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I was married when I left America to Tammy. We got divorced. Boy, we've been together now 9 years. The biggest stress I have in my life, folks, is I'm serious, is deciding which restaurant to go eat at. I used to live in a vat of stress. All of that was removed by the divine and the
Mm-hmm.
work of Mary Habersky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, all right. To bring us back down from the divine for a second,
Okay.
but those are great.
But
Those
in
are the kind of
summary, though,
yeah.
can we just say real quick,
Yeah, sure.
just start the conversation, and you don't have to call it prayer, but it's very similar, right? So start the conversation, but
Yeah, the
anyone could do that,
communication.
right? Go
That's
ahead, Brad.
Absolutely.
that's exactly right. When you're talking to them, it's all prayer. Don't worry about the
Mm-hmm.
content. Remember, you're
Mm-hmm.
not being judged.
Yeah, and like and the analogy at the bar is a good one because you're never going to make that connection if you just stare. If you don't start, that's so
That's
important, right? You got to take
Yeah.
the shot. Back to, just to get a little grounded for those that, are on their way to making that connection. Something you had said earlier, and it was such a critical moment when you were about 6 years old with the kind of abandonment and rejection that you felt and that you experienced. How do you overcome that? How, because you didn't have all the tools you have now then.
Yeah.
How can people that experience that abandonment and rejection, when they feel so alone, what can they do to cope and get through before they can find a mentor or a guide or someone like yourself that can help them further?
Oh, before they can find me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, well,
Right.
when you didn't
Oh,
have your own Dr. G, then what
Yeah,
were you
like,
doing, and what are some things that people can do, in the immediate term before they can, fully find an expert?
another great question. I could write a book on all your questions. I love your questions.
yeah.
So in my case, folks, I did a hell of a lot of suffering. I hardened myself up like John Wayne, and
Mm,
I just pushed through because I'm like just like my favorite general, George Patton.
mm,
Once I have a target, nothing gonna stop me. That's built into me. And when I was a young guy, I was mildly autistic, so I only see one thing, and I had my sense of purpose, and then I'm going. During
mm,
that time, I had one injury after another. Cracked my tailbone in half when I was 16. My left knee went when I was like 19. Then it went again when I was 27. And then in the same year, 27, when Dad died, I broke my back in half. And pardon me, when I broke my back in half in weightlifting, I was as strong as steel. I used to do 1,000 push-ups a day. I leg press when I was almost 40s, 1,250 pounds. So
wow.
I was a strong, hardcore man with a sense of mission. And then the divine was guiding the whole thing. See, when I was rejected, it was a huge blessing
Mm,
because in order to make me into who I am now, I couldn't do what the other guys were doing, like having a girlfriend. I never touched a woman's body till I was 27 years old. She was
mm,
a Japanese prostitute in Tokyo. That's the first time I ever touched a woman's body.
mm,
And you can
Why?
correlate that to the
Because
trauma.
yeah, well, that's part of it, sweetheart. But what happened was,
Sorry.
all those years, see, from the age of 13, I trained 5 to 6 hours per day, 7 days a
mm,
week. And then when I turned 18, I became a professional uchideshi, means the chosen protege of a great grandmaster, Kishida. And I worked labor 8 hours a day, and I trained a minimum of 4 hours every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Now that's really stupid because my injuries were overwork injuries. Nobody ever hurt me in a fight or anything. But what I need, see, once you get the taste of a beautiful woman, that dominates a man's consciousness for the rest of his life. And it's a distraction. So I had no distractions at all. And I became famous all the way to Japan by my deeds, not because I could kick a watermelon or any kind of trophy. There's no competition in classical, what we call classical Budo or classical Heiho. I'm not a sportsman, so don't ever associate me with that. So that's why that happened. So then, the age of 27, I'm finally introduced to women, and suddenly I had dates. But I don't know enough about a woman to put into an eyedropper. So I had to learn all of that. And that was a whole list of broken hearts with very toxic, sexy women hooked on drugs and needed a father and all of that. And me being a saving man, I always wanted to save them. Had to learn the hard way you can't do that. And I myself was a complete mess. I used to think that love was like the movies, where you tell her how pretty she is and she hugs you, and then you go off into the sunset. I didn't know anything about women. So there was all of that started later and went through a quite a few series of events. And then what am I trying to tell you? What was the original question?
You answered it in a way. It was about how you had dealt with the abandonment and the rejection, and you definitely went over.
Right. The determination and consistency.
You mentioned, and this happened to your body too, and you mentioned, in your early years, because a lot of it was brought on by yourself. But what is the role? What role does suffering play in getting us to where we want to go, and how can it
write
have
down your question. I want to return to it.
Yeah.
What role does suffering play? So these guys are the best. So suffering is the key of keys. Suffering is the doorway to your enlightenment, to your happiness, to your power, everything. Now I used to be a musician, so I was a concert cellist. Let's take music. Let's take Debussy as the composer, and you're listening to Afternoon of a Faun. Now, the only way that man can make that type of music with that kind of feeling is because the feeling has been cultivated, experienced, and he's connected, or he can't do it. So you can see, for instance, let's take a piano player like Liberace, and then let's take a child prodigy. The kid's a little kid, and they're playing the most complicated. They're really, they look like a master. But if you listen carefully to the child play that piece, and then you listen to Liberace play that piece, there will be a qualitative difference. Qualitative difference. And that comes from the suffering and experience of life. So we say, iron sharpens iron. This is from King Solomon. Iron sharpens iron, man sharpens man. Means that we learn from each other, from mentors above us, older than us, that have had experience, and then our heart and their field grows us. So when you fall in love with if you're a guy and you fall in love with a beautiful woman like Tara, and one day you go to see her and she just says, "Sorry, I got another guy," or you go over to see her and she's making love to somebody. Now that happened to me exactly like that. And
Mm.
you go through this. The suffering was so great. I had to touch the wall of the room to orientate myself as a man in space, like where I
Mm.
was, because I felt I was dying. And there is a part of me that was dying. But because I go through that, then I have that richness to draw on if you are suffering, if you had a broken heart, if your beautiful little dog just anything with animals. And so you have that in your heart, and then that richness is there for you to understand life, appreciate life, to understand what gratitude really is. If you are just a kid and everything's given to you, I'm so sorry for you. Just very sorry for you. If you're an
Mm.
actress, I work with a lot of actors and actresses in Hollywood and all over wherever they are. If you're just suddenly thrust into stardom and you never really earned it, sorry. And that's why they call me, because they have
Mm.
so much suffering and they don't know what the hell to do with it. You got to earn this stuff. That's why I'm G. Rex Kruhly. Rex was never part of my birth. Divine gave me that name.
Mm.
That's why that's why I set myself as G. Rex Kruhly, because it's symbolic for me. So you suffering without suffering, you don't know anything. Like a children's play. You know, when you see little children and they're so happy, they're in the sandbox and they're just, and then mom's got a beautiful dinner ready, dad's paying the bills there, and they just live. Well, that's not what's like John Wayne said one time, the guy, Bruce Dern says it. Well, Mr. Anderson, you're a hard man. John Wayne says, well, it's a hard life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is. I don't know anybody that goes through life, even Gene Hinman, the greatest of men I've ever known, absolute master of life. But he has tendinitis, and he's got it in his feet. So when he walks, he's in pain all the time. So even Gene, the most blessed man that I know in the world, a retired self-made multimillionaire by the age of 50, unbelievable in every sphere. But he has that suffering. So if you got suffering, bless it and enjoy it and learn from it.
Transmute it, right? You're transmuting it as opposed to hiding from it or resisting it. Like you have to
Mm.
go through the eye of the storm. So I think that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, because that's
She's
a
right,
true
folks.
healer.
That reframe it. You gotta have a breakthrough attitude. A breakdown attitude will be like self-pity because you're suffering so bad. Remember, there's no such thing in the universe ever as a victim. Doesn't exist. Everything is dependently is in capitals. Everything is dependently arising, dependently ceasing. That's the most important equation you'll ever hear in your life, because it states everything. Everything is dependently arising, dependently ceasing. Therefore, if you think about that, victim is impossible. Virtually
Awesome.
impossible.
Yeah. Incredible stuff there. And then it was almost just transfixed following along with
I
you. You've
yeah,
done
it's a
um
transmission. Yeah.
I said so, before we wrap, we've talked a lot about mind, spirit, and mind, body, and spirit are kind of the three pillars that we try to intertwine and get our followers and listeners and clients to get to work together and help them to work each third of them together. You had mentioned in the suffering, as you so eloquently put it, you reframe it and you overcame it. There was a common theme, the breaking of the tailbone, the back getting split in half, some of the issues with the back. We talked about the power of Kundalini and how that's very important and dangerous in a way. And then there's your chiropractic history as well. So there's a lot of the back and the spine in your story. And, for those, again, who may not be as initiated, can you speak to the importance, both of the spine and the body, and how we need to not only take care of our body and that part of it, but also how that can, then affect, the rest of us, our mind and spirit, and how it's interrelated. And I know it's quite a lengthy question, but
I love
it
you,
came up
it's-
it came up several times in our conversation,
Yeah.
and it's really important.
Yes, it is. Yes, everything you guys touch on is primo. So you have 7 koshas. Koshas are body sheaths,
Hmm.
and the very smallest one, the little tiny one, is the Annamaya kosha, which is our physical body, and then one up is the Pranamaya kosha, which is your energy body.
Hmm.
There's all the other bodies up above that. Okay, so um, let's see, how do I begin this? So when he talks about the spine and so forth, okay, think of your body. So your body is loaned to you. It's not you. It's not yours. You didn't make it. You're in it, and you chose it before you were born. You chose everything before we're born. You choose the whole thing. Whether no matter how bad the suffering or what the tragedy is, you chose the whole thing. And why would you choose that? Well, when you're up where you were choosing, it looks like nothing. It looks like candy. But when you get down here and we're experiencing it on Earth, it's not.
Hmm.
It's not candy. So anyway, your body is a gift, and one of the most important things to do is to honor and take care of your body. I was a kid that wanted respect and wanted to be loved, and because I didn't love myself at all, I thought I believed that I was the ugliest human being on the planet, because girls all through school, there wasn't a girl. Every girl thought I avoided me like the plague,
Hmm.
and I just believed that I was enormously ugly. And I believed that, Dad and everybody, I was unlovable and everything, but I was a great fighter. I could knock the hell out of anything in front of me. Nobody ever beat me. So I use that as my ego identity, a safety net. Now, if you notice my career, it was dotted by all these huge injuries, and I couldn't do anything. I was crippled. Usually, each injury took me 3 years of sitting on the sidelines and watching and being helpless because of the pain or the disability. So my self-image was very fragile. It was all based on my identity as a martial artist, which is my body. I was a tough guy. I was athletic. Nobody could see my punch. I was so fast. All that kind of stuff. So it was my body, my body, my body. When my body would get hurt, I became very angry at my body, viciously angry. And that anger embedded itself in me because I felt like my body was betraying me.
Hmm.
That was unusual and an unusual interpretation, but I always felt my one thing in life is my body, and my
Hmm.
body isn't working. Why? Why do other people get hurt and they heal right away? Why don't I heal? So that became a theme pattern throughout my whole life. And in order to heal your body, don't ever go to medical people. Virtually worthless. Worthless. You go to body work people. Don't ever go to a hospital. If you go, unless you're bleeding profusely or something, you go to a chiropractor. Chiropractors are real chiropractor. There's 250 different kinds of chiropractic, and my kind of chiropractic works with the higher consciousness and the brain specifically. Other kinds of chiropractic, like Joe Dispenza, which is Gonstead, is like a physical engineer of the bone structure. I'm not like that. So him and I, we're very different kinds of chiropractors. But a real good chiropractor, not a snap, crackle, pop idiot, makes allopathic medicine look like a joke. People like George Goodhart Jr., Donald Epstein, Bob Rakowski, Larry Habersky, Jeff Britton, allopathic doctors couldn't even walk in the same sun as those guys. So anyway, we work with the spine. Now the spine, when you think of symbolism, that is your lifeline base, your lifeline. The structure and straightness, or the communication, the flow for your life, your personal power, your character, your rectitude, your resilience, everything. And then it centers down on the sacrum, which is like a plateau. So spine comes down, think of it like a tree trunk that comes, a pole comes down, and it's sitting on a flat surface. And then that triangles down between your legs, and then your legs are attached at the sides. So that is your, and then of course the head is sitting on C1, occiput C1, right? And it's got to be able to move. Everything depends on this antenna array brain, which communicates with 4 pathways to the heart, which is the primary brain, not this. No, I got that backward. There's 4 systems from the communicate from the heart to this. From here down is only 1. Anyway, the central nervous system hangs inside your spine like a bunch of sheets on a curtain. That's what the spinal cord looks like, sheets. And it's inside this hole, tube, that's protected by the bone structure of your spine. Inside your neck, those little, all the cord, all the sheets, there's these little tiny microscopic ligaments called dentate ligaments that attach to the sheets to the inside wall of the bones in your neck. And then also down in your sacrum. But between your neck all the way to your sacrum, there's no dentate ligaments. The sheets hang free. Now, when you're living your life and environmental triggers are touching off programs in the subconscious that cause stress, worry, or fear, the cord starts to twist, and it's called adverse cord tension. So the instead of being all 3 hanging, they start to get wrapped, like twisting a towel. And as it twists, it pulls the dentate ligaments. The ligaments are attached to the bone wall inside, so that it's torquing the bone. And as it torques the bone, on all of the bone structure of your spine, there's little holes called foramen. And the big nerves that run your body, your hands, everything you do, they come out of those holes. And as the bone structure is torqued by the dentate ligaments, those little holes can get occluded. If they get occluded, there's the nerve that goes through that hole is interfered with. In some cases, it'll get pinched. You ever heard of a pinched nerve? It's like a hose running water, and you bend it, and the water won't go because you bent it. So when that happens, it's a cascade effect all the way down. Pardon me. All the way down. And that's why communication from the back of the head has to be able to talk freely to the sacrum at the between your legs, the base there. It's got to have a really good communication. So a real good chiropractor, not some idiot. If you go to an idiot, you get idiot care. If you go to a master, you get master's care. Very simple. You go to allopathic medicine, they give you medicine, you die. Or you get some kind of chemical reaction, and you get all the different things that you get. So you go to a master, and what he does is he corrects the structure. Normally, most chiropractors, not my kind, but like a Joe Dispenza's kind, he corrects the bone structure because he wants to reverse engineer the communication, and then the cord unwinds. In my case, I talk to the higher cortical areas of the brain. This is called network chiropractic or biocranial from Dr. Boyd. And the higher cortical areas of the brain reorganize and look down through, and they self-adjust the bone structure because that makes our brain learn how to heal itself, and it will self-correct the bone structure and unwind the cord tension. And then when that spine is happy, life and your physical body and ability works correctly. If it's not, you will have issues. Did I answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely. You sure did. Can you give a nugget, a tidbit? What should people be doing on their own as far as keeping their back and spine in good working order?
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, there's a couple of systems, and you should write these down because these are the creme de la creme. They have to be creme de la creme just to graduate. So first and foremost, the finest doctors you can find for structure, for your physiology, metabolics, everything, is an applied kinesiologist. So you call them up and you look for an applied kinesiologist, and then you ask them, how many years have you been a doctor, and are you a diplomat of AK? How many years, and are you a diplomat? If you can find a doc 10 to 20 years experience, that's what you're looking for, and they make sure they're a diplomat. That means they're up to date, and you're guaranteed that they know exactly what they're doing. Any chiropractor or doctor that ever tries to put you on a payment plan, get the hell out of there. That's a businessman. No healer will ever do that. Ever. Next, biocranial. And you call them up and you say, are you Dr. Boyd's school? Otherwise, forget it. And that's I'm a biocranial man, and I'm a network doctor. So those two, and then cranial sacral therapy is genius. It's actually an offshoot of network chiropractic. Now, when you see a cranial sacral therapist, or if you go to a network doctor, that is a process-oriented system. It's not an event system. So an event system means your neck is out, the guy goes, and it's back. That's an event doctor.
Okay.
A process doctor is you go to see him 2-3 times a week, or at least twice a month, and he's raising the consciousness and the health of your body, and it's a growing situation. I'm both. Depth healing is both. Now, so those are the systems that I recommend for your health, and you should at least go once a month, so that you keep your spine just like you brush your teeth every day. You address your spine, because environmental triggers, you're reading environmental triggers at 40 million bits per second, and you don't know what's in your subconscious. So it's running the show.
Absolutely.
All of the great scientists know, and will say 95% of your life is all subconscious. So that's where I come in. I'm able to change the subconscious database. That's what I do. When I do that,
Absolutely.
new life in a new body. Okay. That's but in any case, you
Mhm.
always want to address your body, and then remember toxins. Wi-Fi kills all life on Earth. Wi-Fi at 4G creates 3 different levels of dementia. It breaks single and double strand DNA in half. It causes brain fog. It's absorbed by water and oil. Your brain is made out of water and oil. So Wi-Fi protection is imperative. Those little cue car things are completely worthless. Throw them in the garbage. You got to have a protection that envelops the entire body. If you put one of them things on your wrist, congratulations. Very nice for your wrist.
Mhm.
So you get if you go to my website, I do endorse a particular form of Wi-Fi protection that was developed by a German scientist. It's wireless. It's charged for 4 to 6 years, and it radiates electrons in a spherical field. Any biologic system that is within that field is completely enveloped in electrons, and no Wi-Fi can get through it at all. You can also go online and look for clothes that are woven now with copper fibers to try to protect you when you go outside.
Mhm.
Wi-Fi is the way they exterminate people. I mean, Wi-Fi is everything. We need Wi-Fi, but you got to understand the arena.
Mhm.
It's looks like your friend, but So Wi-Fi, and then the foods, proper supplementation, and then police what you allow into your mind. Police it very carefully. Do not allow yourself to be, because no one will do it for you. This is something you must do for yourself. Don't
Mhm.
allow yourself to be absorbing trash. And there's a lot of trash. And a lot of it looks really good. They sound very I've seen some moron has got a system. He says that he's going to remove your chakras for you, so they don't bother you anymore.
That's a different one. I haven't heard that one yet. Removal.
There's
All
no
right.
if anything could do something to a chakra, you will die instantly. All that stuff is la la land garbage.
Mhm.
The trick with me, there's no la la land. Period. That's why the military hire me. That's why professionals hire, because I am the real deal. That's very important that you attach yourself to real things, real masters, real systems.
Mhm.
Spiritual systems are best if they have lineages.
Mhm.
Why? Lineages are morphic fields. Without a lineage, you're looking at nothing. Just some guy that happened to read 50 books and made his own thing. And he may or may not have anything real at all. When you
Mhm.
have a lineage, you have power because you're connected into the lineage. That's one of the secrets of the Dharma, all Dharmas. I don't know if that makes sense to you. If you ever want
Yeah.
to,
No, it does, and I think that advice there is practical. And we did like a sweeping overview because you just have such a vast amount of
Yeah.
knowledge. But
For
I think
everyone. Yeah.
we will definitely take you up on that, part 2
Yeah.
in
I
the
love it.
future for sure. I think
I,
that this was just a great primer for our listeners and followers and clients and potential clients for you for depth healing. Hopefully, just because there's just so much that you have to teach them. I found it extremely rewarding, and
Thank you
so
so
glad
much.
It's
that we were
an
able to
honor.
connect.
Yeah.
I wish I
Absolute
had my
honor.
suit on. The time got away from me this morning, and I didn't get a chance to put my suit and tie because I always come on with a suit and tie.
All
My
right. Well, next
apologies.
time then we'll have to have you again soon. We really appreciate
You
it. Now,
know
where
something,
can we?
Tara? As a healer, your smile alone will heal them.
Oh,
You
thank you
got
very
such a
much.
sweet presence, honey.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so we
Appreciate it.
have Dr. G, Dr. Grant Cooley, Dr. G Rex, and that's the best way probably is depthhealing.org. But you
Yeah.
also have a presence, across all platforms, YouTube, Instagram, you're on a bunch of different social medias.
That's because of my
What do you
beauty.
recommend when people say, where can I learn more about Dr. Jake?
Oh, well, that's a good question. So always go to the website. My admin, Johnny Chumpakan, did a beautiful job because I couldn't make, it's all I can do to use a keyboard. Johnny makes
The
all that.
videos, I mean, from personal, testimonial real quick, just the videos and the presentation is mesmerizing. So it's incredible stuff.
Now, here's something. If you're watching this thing, I don't know when this goes on, but if this is live, we still have the full moon. If you go to my YouTube channel,
Okay.
I did the big full moon, say every month I do a free full moon Seba ceremony that's exponentially powerful because it's directly tied into the divine, amplified by the moon, and with my empowerments, I do a lot of stuff. So if you go to that YouTube and you look at that while the moon is full, you still receive the grace.
Okay.
Power is there because of the moon's amplification. And then there's all kinds of other stuff on YouTube. I'm producing a lot of educational videos these days now. So that's the way to do that. And my writings on my website. Help yourself and then give me a call and I'll take care of you.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Definitely.
Well, thank you so much, sir. Continue that the healing, with your back and everything. You seem strong as most of the people half your age. That's for sure. On many levels, mind, body, and spirit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
So. I got a lot of work to do yet.
Yeah.
I love you guys. You're the best team. I just love this so much. I really do. And thank you for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
We look
Absolutely.
forward.
The pleasure is all ours. Thank you. Great meeting you, Dr. Jake.
Ditto. I'll see you.